Hey everyone, sorry about the shaky video. Today on the docket is my 2008 Pontiac G5. What we're going to do today is I need to take and swap out the tie rods on it. Before we begin, just a few things. Always make sure when you use a jack, you have that jack stand to go with it. Very, very important. Also, make sure you also loosen, and in my case I have to take off the hubcaps that you see there, and then loosen up your lug nuts before you take and start jacking up and supporting the vehicle. Alright, you see here I've already got the hubcap off. As you can see, I got 4 lug nuts on this particular vehicle. I'm going to be using this, a 4-way, like I said before. I'm just going to break these loose initially. The other reason why I'm swapping out the tie rod, if you look in here, you can see this is not worn very evenly at all. The inside, or the outside's a lot more worn than the inside. It's one of the reasons why I'm swapping this out. Alright, so I'll be back here in a moment once I get these loose. Just remember when you're jacking up a vehicle that you have it under a good location in order to be jacking this up. I can support the weight. And basically, you want to get it high enough that you get the wheel off the ground. As you can see, I'm already at that point. However, if I try taking my jack stand and put it underneath the vehicle, it doesn't fit. So in my case, I need to go a lot higher, mostly for the jack, or jack stand, excuse me. Now, I need to get it up under there. As you can see, I need to go up quite a bit more. So we're going to keep going up. And also make sure your jack's heavy duty enough. The one that I'm using, it's rated at 3.5 tons. And this vehicle does not even anywhere near weigh that. Also, another little tip, try to get your jack stand as close to the jack as you can. You'll have the best chance of getting it underneath. You kind of want something like this, where you can get it underneath, then you're going to slowly let it down. And as you can see, you want the jack's stand supporting most of your weight, like I have it now. Now I still want to leave my jack underneath it just in case. But this way, if something happens where the jack fails for some reason, car still supported, it's not going to come crashing down, and there's a good chance that, heaven forbid, if you're underneath there when that happens, you'll be able to get out of there before anything bad happens. Alright, next step. We're going to go take and, I'm going to take off the wheel. Take off the lug nuts, which I already loosened. And then I'm going to take and remove the wheel. Then I'll be back. As you can see, my wheel's off now. It's sitting over here. Now you're probably looking at this saying, well, hey, my rotors don't look like this. Correct. Most rotors are solid. These ones are drilled and slotted. I upgraded these not too long ago. The part we're after is right here. This is the tie rod, the outer tie rod, which is bad on this vehicle. So I need to take and replace it. Also, while you're under here, good time to take and take a look at your brake pads. Make sure they got good meat on them like I do. As you can see, mine are fairly new. These brakes are pretty new yet. I know they don't look it, but they're only a couple of months old. I just replaced them. But the car's been sitting a bit before I was waiting on parts for the new ones, so also always take the time to look through everything, make sure everything's fine, like your sway bar links and everything else. While you have it apart, it's always a good time to do a quick visual inspection. It only takes a couple minutes. So, alright, next thing we need to do is take this off. Whoops, can't see that. Yeah, there you go. You gotta take off the nut and the bolt right there. Alright, next we're going to remove that bolt that I couldn't get in focus too well, but it's an 18mm in my case. And this secures the tie rod to the vehicle. Normally, there's a castle nut and a oh, what the heck is it? I'm trying to think here. Normally there's a castle nut and a cotter pin, but for whatever reason this one doesn't have it. You'll see on the new one when I get to that point. The new one does have that. Uh-oh. Oh, fiddlesticks. Fortunately, I don't need a tie rod puller. As you can see, this is loose, which in this case is bad, because now the nut is just going to sit there and spin. Well, easiest solution, if you don't care about the boot, which I don't because I'm going to be replacing this anyway, is grab a pair of vice grips on that. Focus. Come on. Put you guys down for a sec here. There we go. There we go. Come on. Focus. Thank you. Basically what you do is you put it right. Okay, as I said, as long as if you don't care about the boot, you can use this method. I actually got this from another person on the internet, to be 100% honest. This isn't my idea. It works. You basically clip the vice grips basically around the shaft, so that way when you go to turn it, it will not turn the bolt underneath. At least that's the plan anyway. Like I said, the downside is 9 times out of 10 you take and wreck the boot, but as you can see, the vice grips are also moving, but the nut is also coming off. I should be able to get this off by hand. Nope. Still. Hold on a minute. I had just said in the video that the bolt was coming off. Well, guess what? It was not. What I didn't know, what I know now, what I didn't know at the time, was the fact that it was actually spinning even with the vice grips on it. Pro tip, always use a new cutting blade. As you can see, that one's pretty much shot. Just for the comparison, the one I just put on top is a brand new one. More on this a little later. And also, okay, where'd you go? Oh. No, come on, focus. Yeah. I'll explain a bit later. Okay, this is the section of the video where it's do as I say, not as I do. Reason why I have this out, my handy dandy grinder with a nice cutoff wheel, is because of the fact that when I tried getting to the end of that, I couldn't get the stupid thing off. I was using my wrench here, and I know before I showed you I was using the handle, but then I got to this, which is basically the same thing. I was using it in the middle, and yeah, it wasn't working too well. Yeah, it wasn't working too well, and it kept slipping off, and I couldn't get it to stop spinning the shaft. But as you can see, since I cut it off, it tie rod's out now. And like I said, as I said, do as I say, not as I do. I do not in any way, shape, or form recommend doing this. When my mechanic hears about it, he's going to kill me. Because besides cutting it off, you're going to run into some problems. Well, I'm going to run into some problems. this lock nut, right, this one, has to come off. Now, right on the tie rod, they do give you an indented place to put another wrench. So you put a wrench here to break this loose, and you put another wrench here to hold it. Normally, you have this in the hole, and you have it on there a little bit loose so it doesn't twist on you. I, unfortunately, do not have that option anymore since, as I said, I just cut off the nut. So it's going to be a little more interesting for me to try to get this lock nut off. And I have to get that off so I can actually get the tie rod unscrewed and I can screw in the new one. Yeah. So, again, one of these things. Do as I say, not as I do. I do not recommend this. Honestly, what I should have done, and which if you have the ability, I would highly recommend it, is when you go to take off that nut, just use an impact driver, preferably an air one. It would have zipped it off 1, 2, 3, and I wouldn't have to deal with the turning shaft because with the air impact. I might do another video when I have to do both sides of this vehicle. This is the passenger side I'm working on now. When I do the driver's side, I'm probably going to use my air impact wrench. I'll make another video on how to do it with that, so that way it should be a lot easier. But yeah, time for more fun. Okay, next day. Yeah. For those of you that were at the cringe mode the last time I left off, which was yesterday, well, a few things happened since then. When I was going to remove this bolt, the lock nut, so I could unscrew the tie rod off of the inner tie rod shaft. Yeah, when the wrench broke loose, my hands hit up here, and I was so close it actually whacked my hand into my head. Yeah, that was the damage from the strut tower. My head has a nice red mark on it. But anyway, at least I got the lock nut did break loose. As you can see here, well, it was loose. I'm sure it is. Just for the reference, I'll put this in the description below, but the nut there is a 7/8 nut, and I used a 3/4 nut here on this flat area, so to keep the tie rod from spinning. Now what I'm going to do is what you need to do next, which is you need to unscrew the tie rod off, but you need to count the number of threads, so when you go to put your new tie rod on, you get somewhat close. And just as always, since I'm doing this all in segments, I'll be back. Just wanted to show you, like I said, this is 7/8. And as you can see, this nut is pretty loose. There we go. Now we're loosening it. Okay. Now that lock nut's loose so that the tie rod should be able to pull it up and spin it right off. And there it goes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 16 and a half. Now the number that as I was doing that was every time that the tie rod went to the bottom, that was 1 revolution. That number will vary on both sides on the same vehicle and from vehicle to vehicle. Count the number of threads you have on yours when you go to take your tie rod end off. Either write it down, or like in my case, do it in a video format so that you have it, or just write it down somewhere on a piece of paper or write a note on your phone or whatever the case may be. But you need to get that so before you go to align it, you'll have it somewhat close so you can drive it down to wherever you get your alignment done, so they won't have as bad of a time. And yes, you do need to get this aligned. Once you start messing with anything with steering, you definitely need to before you go too far with it. We'll be back here in a sec. I'm going to go dig out the new one. Actually, I'll just show you right here. That's my new one, the Moog. Very good quality. Looks a bit different than the old one. It's actually longer. It's the right size. And also, the hardware is different. Okay, now this hardware is a bit different. You've got the lock nut there. This is actually a castle nut along with the cotter pin. That goes on the bottom underneath. You'll see that in a bit. The middle has got a zerk fitting, and then they also include a washer, and they include a new lock nut, which I will put on here in a minute. Alright. As you can see here on this fitting, I put the zerk fitting in, which is this piece right there. It comes with the tie rod. It's a 7mm bolt. Be very careful not to strip it, because it's very easy to do so. But that's so that way you can grease it later after you install it. Also, as you can see for this particular one, if it'll focus, right there is where the cotter pin will go into once I mount it on there. Also, a little tip. What we have there is my pair of vice grips again. I held on to the inner tie rod because it was spinning when I was trying to take off the lock nut. As you can see, it's missing. In my case, my particular kit comes with a new lock nut. Here it is. If your kit has one, use it. Just replace it with the new one. I mean, if you have one, might as well. Now, I had a heck of a time trying to get it off a little bit because of the rust, but, you know, see what happens. Anyway. Now I'm going to go take and thread this on. It's going to be 15.5 turns, because that's what I took off the old one, starting at the bottom here. And you just count. Every time you go through a full rotation, whoops, it's 1, 2, okay, we're at 3 right now. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, I guess at this point you can take off your vice grips. This thing is starting to get heavy. There we go. 10. We're at 11, 12, 13, 14. We're at 15. Now I said 15.5 before. I'm going to actually go one more. I'm going to go 16. Because I can't get 15.5. There's just no way. Alright. And what you want to do then is put it loosely into the hole. And then take your lock nut here. And you want to spin it back so it's actually touching your tie rod. And then what you're going to do is just put the tie rod in loosely. And then what we're going to do, we're going to take the lock nut with another 7/8 inch ratchet, or wrench, excuse me, not a ratchet. And you're just going to tighten it up. And don't go super gorilla tight, because your mechanic, just get it snug so that it doesn't move. And then what you're going to do is you want to push down your tie rod so you can see, as you can see down there, you see little itty bitty threads. There's not really much there, but it's enough. Make sure you don't lose your cotter pin. And in my case, I have a washer. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't, just depends. And you're going to take your washer and then your castle nut, and you're going to start to thread it. Now it doesn't look like, oh, I can get it here. There it is, right there. Come on. There it is. As you can see, there's not really much thread there, and that's okay. Then what you're going to do is just tighten it by hand as far as you can go. Now if you look above it, you can see it's kind of starting to squish down the this part right here that holds your grease and your oil, or hold your lubricant. And I'm still just going by hand. Alright, so now we're going to have to take and get some tools here. Let's see what size this is. Okay, my camera stopped recording again. Whatever. Alright, you're going to take your ratchet and start cranking down on this. Now in this case, actually, I hope if I'm actually going the right way. This is 18 millimeter, by the way, is the socket size. Now as you can see, it's really starting to get squished down as I keep tightening it. And all I'm doing is just tightening it. I'm not even going that tough yet. Now I'm starting to get to the point where I'm getting some resistance. And you don't need to go down just like to screaming mad dog tight here. You want it snug. Now in my case I actually have to back it off just a touch, because you see right there, there's the hole for the cotter pin, which is right here, or you'll see it here in a sec. And then just for convenience sake, I usually put whatever end towards me just to make it easy. Then you just take a pair of needle nose pliers and you bend it down. Okay. Keep your cotter pin from backing out on you, like this. Now you just, like I said, if this was your only side you were doing, you'd be good to go. You'd be going to get your vehicle aligned. Obviously, you still need to put on your wheels. Wheels, tire, rim. Take it off the jack stand. And in my case, I need to do the other side as well. Also, you may also want to put some grease in there. I'll probably do that off camera, but yeah. All right. And that's how you do a tie rod, at least I should say a cringe-worthy one anyway. My next video after this one is going to be doing the driver's side. And guess what? I'm actually going to use air tools for that one. So stay tuned for that. Oh, also I should mention in the video's description I'll have a link to the next video if it's up, which it probably will be because I'll probably edit them both at the same time and then upload them one after another. Also, I'll put links to all the stuff I used. I'm not going to actually put, I'm going to put links on what you need size-wise and stuff. I'm not going to actually put actual product links except for the tie rod itself for this vehicle. I'll put a link to Amazon for that. It won't be an affiliate link. It'll just be a link that'll take you to the Amazon page if you want the exact model number that I used. They're not cheap. The Moog ones are $35, I believe. If not, I'll annotate it in the at the bottom of the screen on what the price is, at least at the time of making this video.